Coaching. You got to get coaching, and the way to do that. And the trouble with this in this day and age, that everybody's a coach. And you go spend 5 minutes with somebody on a weekend. It's like, yeah, I'm a certified coach. I would find somebody, the area that you work and the area that you want to get great at in your life. I say, Google the best person in the world with proven results. Not that somebody is just doing it overnight, but somebody that's been doing it for a decade or more and has years and years and years and so many testimonials. So they're not just a fluffy type.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Robb Evans. And as a quick introduction to Robb, so Robb, in his own words, was maybe not the greatest high school student, so he didn't and was told he wouldn't necessarily always amount to much. So was not necessarily good at sports or studies, and so was struggled what to do as far as going or getting into a career. Decided to go into accounting at college or university. Afterwards, worked for a couple of large accounting firms, and as he was studying for an accounting test, decided he didn't want to be an accountant anymore. And so with that, went into the corporate world for about 19 years, decided to move over into the coaching space, and has been doing that since 2007. And by 2009, it went coaching full time, and also wanted to be a more involved dad. And so built up or did some work on that as well. And I'm sure he'll get into that. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Robb.
Thank you, Devin. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for that introduction.
Absolutely excited to have you on. So I just gave kind of the 30 or 45 second, however long, overview of a much longer journey. But maybe to kick things off, let's rewind things a bit and tell us how your journey got started in high school. Maybe not always being the best student, but still making something of yourself.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm 54 years of age. So if you go back to when I was in high school, it looked very, very different. I remember when I was in year 10, the whole school was so excited because we got Commodore 64s. And I know, did they have those? I don't know if that was an Australian brand or not, but we would do these classes, and the idea was that you would write a program so that you get this little triangular mouse to draw a box, a square. You had to say, put in the commands to go straight this far and then turn right, et cetera, et cetera. I hated it. But obviously there was no internet. There was nothing, nothing like that. And like I'm short statured. I'm only like 5'5" now. So as a child, I was like the smallest in the school. I was an easy target for bullies. I was, I liked sports, but because I was so small, everybody else was like growing. I was staying about the same. So I was slower. I was, going to get crushed in any of the body, physical sports that I like to play, etc. So, a big thing here, and I know it's similar in the US, and we do it around the world. We hold up sports people up on this big pedestal, right? And I thought, the popular kids at school were all great at sport, and they also just happened to be great at schoolwork as well. And I'm like, and I linked the two together. It's like, well, if you were great at sports, you're also good at school. You're popular. You had the girlfriends, the boyfriends, all that kind of stuff. I had none of that. And I think the way that they taught school back in, it's different now. You don't understand something, you can jump on YouTube, find a video to teach you. Oh, right, that's how you do it. But back then, like if you sat in the class, if you didn't get it in the lesson, you were pretty much screwed. I struggled all through high school, didn't know what I wanted to do because I wasn't good at anything. And then I found that I like numbers. So I'm very left brain thinking. So I was good at maths. I liked maths. And then we did a business subject. I liked accounting. And then I thought, okay, well, I guess I better do that because I suck at everything else. And so then followed that path into senior high school, being year 11 and 12 here. And then from there, I thought, well, I got to keep this going. And I thought, well, maybe the pathway for me is to get a uni degree. And one of the things that I remember thinking about is no one in my family had been to university before. They'd either stopped at year 12 or year 11 or less. And I thought, you know, I want to do things differently. And so I wanted to get a uni degree. So I decided that was going to be accounting. And like you said, as I was going through it, so I finished the degree. I was born in sort of central Victoria here, so sort of a smaller country town, about 50,000 people. Then I moved to Melbourne, the capital of Victoria here, and like millions of people here. And I worked for Coopers and Lybrand, which is PricewaterhouseCoopers now. And it was through that journey to becoming a chartered accountant. I thought, well, I want to become a chartered accountant. I thought, I'll get my experience here, then I'll return to Bendigo. So I wanted to, you know, move back there. And the irony was, going through studying to be that, I thought, I really don't enjoy this. I didn't like the culture within, you know, those big firms, and the management style of the big partners and that kind of stuff. Like, this is not for me. And so then I moved from there over into the corporate space. And
so let me ask just one question, because I mean, sometimes you'll get into it where you have a seminal moment where you just say, okay, I've had enough, I don't want to do this anymore, and you said, okay, I'm going to do something else. And sometimes it's just kind of death by a thousand cuts, to where, okay, it's not really any one moment that you can pinpoint. It's just more of, eventually you find yourself worn out or not liking the job. And so it kind of sounds like the latter. But kind of, was there any event or thing that you said, finally I've had enough, I'm going to go do something else?
Look, there was one thing. I remember being in a particular room, the opposite. It wasn't my workspace, it was someone else's. I was in there for a bit of a social catch up with some people. And I remember hearing something that happened with one of the senior managers and another staff member. And I don't know whether it's inappropriate, or you say whatever people do outside their their work life and whatever. And I'm just listening to it, and it was kind of like gossip, and I'm sitting there listening to it. Actually, I'm standing there, and I'm thought, this is so not me. Like big drinking culture in, you've got to think that what I would have been in like early 20s, mid 20s, less than 30. It's just a different culture. And kind of like Wall Street, I imagine, there's a lot of energy. You're really thrashed by those firms. You're really pushed, and they have a high churn rate in terms of the graduates. So, it was that moment where I heard that, and I thought, I'm done. I hadn't finished my chartered accounting. I thought, once I finish this, I'm getting out of this firm. And I thought, well, I've worked this hard to get it, so let's keep going. And it wasn't until, I used that qualification to get out into, private industry, and then have a few different roles in some big corporates. And then I actually did enjoy my last role, but I just realized that my true passion was doing what I'd always done. I've been, so I run you said about coaching. So I run a health and fitness business. I do coaching in that space. I do business coaching as well to help people, just because of, my journey. And I've got a kind of a blend of a whole bunch of skills. Sometimes you just have those moments, again, a moment where you realize, you know what, I should be doing this. And I can tell you the exact moment where I decided to shift career. And that was, I was sitting in my studio, and I was sitting on the edge of the bench, and, you say, oh, you see the light. And I always used to ask my question, what am I going to do? I've been sitting in these roles for like 13 years, and there's only so many sideways movements in a big organization you can make before there's so much pressure to go up. And I was sitting there, and I remember I just looked up to the light, and I said, what am I going to do? And I'm like, why don't I do this? And then in that moment, I thought, well, why don't I, my wife at the time, I'm divorced now, but my wife at the time, we had 2 young kids, and I thought I wanted to spend more time with the kids. She wanted to get back into work, and I thought, well, hang on, this makes sense. So I could start running my own business. I lived on an acreage. I had a separate, building there where I was going to be doing the training with people. That's how I was going to start out. And it was in that moment, that was in 2007, when I said, right, I'm not going to go back to a uni degree. I'm going to just get the the simplest qualification I can get so I can do what I do. And that's what I did. And it all started in that moment.
And that's what I was going to add. And this is a follow up. So, you say, okay, enough is enough type of thing. I'm going to go or shift gears, have an opportunity to do that. And your wife wants to go work and it kind of gives that good balance. How did you figure out, what that was going to be or what you were going to do or how, or, what that shift was going to look like?
Yeah. So again, because of the accountant and the left brain thinking, so it was 2007, right, where I got my qualification. So my thinking was by 2013, I will start doing this full time. That was my headspace at the time. So in 2007, I did the research, say, okay, how do I do it? Can I just start doing it? Do I need to get a qualification? I looked at, okay, in order to get insurance, I need to get this minimum qualification. That took, because I was going to keep working and do, like in parallel. It was going to take about a year to get that qualification. It was 2 qualifications I needed. So I did that. So then we're into 2008. In my second half of that year, my wife at the time had our second child. And so it was by 2009, I said, I cannot wait till 2013. I'm so pumped and ready to do this now. I'm going to do it now. So I had been working in the background. I had one client when I left and I thought, you know what? I've never run a business before, but I'm going to make this work. And, you stand the test of time. I've been here 13 years now. And, each day is more exciting than the last. But I had a plan to,
and that's jumping over a good period of time. So let's unwrap that just a bit or dive in a bit deeper. So, so you go back, you say, I'm going to get the degree, I'm going to shift careers, I'm going to go in a different direction. So you go get the degrees, get ready and do that. Now, how did you go make that leap to starting a business? Because that's one leap that a lot of people trying to figure out is, where do I get clients? How do I build a business? Who do I talk with? What do I need to do? What are the steps? And you get overwhelmed or you don't know what to do and you kind of get lost. So how did you kind of go about getting that set up or started?
Yeah, great question. So I realized pretty quickly that I need to get coaching in the area, like people that had run like successful fitness businesses before and run not just businesses, but successful fitness businesses, and help me with the marketing, because I didn't know how to sell. I was like an accountant. I didn't know how to sell people, how to come up with the marketing and so forth. So I was very fortunate that I came across some good coaches that helped me at the time in that space. And so I was really working with them from 2008 all through 2009. It was only with them that I got that confidence to say, all right, I've got the tools to do the marketing. I've got the confidence through knowing what to do. Through them, they helped me get contacted with the right people for a website, also with a CRM system, so that the back end, so I could automate as much as possible. Also another company that helped me with the nutrition side, so I could do like custom meal plans for people and that kind of stuff. So without that coaching, I would have had no idea. I'd probably still be just thinking about it.
Fair enough. And I think that can make a big difference. And I think it makes a perfect sense. So now you're going through and saying, okay, got the degree, had some good connections, got some walkthrough, got the business kind of maybe set up and going a bit. How did you then find the customers? And was it a journey where, hey, I got things set up and it was just a rocket ship to the top and everything was perfect and it went just according to plan? Or was it more of some bumps along the way and you had to figure things out? But kind of walk us through over that course of, I think you said 13 years.
13 years now.
How did the business go from, I've got some background and ideas of how to do it, to actually building a business that has withstood a pretty good test of time?
Yeah, so with the coaching, they helped me realize, obviously in the space that I mainly started out in, like we're talking physical transformation. Now, obviously the way that, certainly in my country here, the way that health has changed and people's perception of health and fitness and weight loss has really changed. Like social media's had a huge impact on that. Now, so I'm finding now, and also since COVID, people are talking differently about health, and it's more about their inner health rather than what they look like. But go back those 13 years, and it was very much about, here's before photo and after photo, and what's the success story. So I learned pretty quickly that I needed to get success stories, testimonials from people. And the best way to do that was to run these 8-week challenges. And I was running about 3 or 4 of them a year. And what I did with that, everybody was successful. And we had people that were losing anywhere between, I don't know, say 5 kilos up to 19 kilos over that 8-week period. Great before and after photos, a story with that. And then, of course, I use those on my success stories page and my website. People were Googling, etc., and they could see, oh, wow, this is really good. The coaching also said to me, you need to get into group coaching. So like boot camps. Boot camps were a very big thing back then. And so I started doing just boot camp for women, because that was when like 85% of the market was at the time. And so I started, it was called Pakenham Boot Camps for Women. And so my suburb boot camps for women bought that domain. So of course, people in my suburb then Googling that were then coming straight to me. Spent a lot of money when I first started advertising, putting flyers in newspapers like the local free newspaper and that kind of stuff. And my goal was it's like, I'm a smart person. I can get other people to run that side of my business. I can hire the trainers. I can be at 3 different locations and, just leverage that. Now, that was a great learning experience, very expensive, a lot of work. We were talking about about 10,000 flyers being distributed every 4 weeks. And in the end, I had to do a lot of that myself. The newspaper was messing it up. And then we experimented a couple of ways doing it ourselves. And it was a nightmare. It really was. We're barely breaking even by the time I got my marketing, my staff paid for, and we're talking like having 20 people in a session. And it was just killing me. So through that, I learned that also I wasn't getting a lot of retention. And it's like, why are people not staying more than, I was running them in like 4-week blocks. And as soon as one finished, one might finish on a Friday, the next one starts on the next Monday. And I was finding that each 4 weeks, I'd have to market again and again and again and again. And so through that, I realized that, I'm not getting the retention. So I had to step back in. And by stepping in, I realized that the staff that I'd employed were not connecting with the clients in the way that I would have. And as soon as I started to do that, well, guess what? The retention went through the roof. So I realized that, like the staff, they're never going to have the same passion as a business owner, but they weren't having the right conversations. They probably weren't the right people. And over time, I now, I don't do boot camps anymore. So I think the flavor for that has gone, certainly since COVID. But I went from, having only people for 4 weeks to having people for 9 years by changing my business model and learning and, getting the better coaches and me doing, stepping more in, having more control of that. So I think some of the mistakes I made early were just thinking that I could trust everybody else to just do it and it would work. And of course, things happen for a reason. Problems come up. It forces you to back in to see that actually we've got some gaping holes here. And so, it was definitely not plain sailing in terms of how I got my first clients, because I was still at my old corporate job. That was my very first client, one of the managers that I worked with there. And he had a great transformational story in a short period of time. So he was my very first success story. From there, I then went on to run the challenges. I was doing a lot of speaking gigs. So with my coaches, we were talking about what are all the different things. So we talk about having poles in different ponds, so you're not just doing one thing. So there was, again, social media, believe it or not, didn't really exist back then when I first started. So it was advertising in the newspaper. It was forming strategic alliances with local businesses. Like we're talking in the space I was in, it's like hairdressers, beauty, massage therapists, chiros, osteos, that kind of stuff, nutritionists, if they would jump on board. And then it was doing speaking gigs. So I would, speak at the opening of an envelope. Basically, if somebody would allow me to speak, then I would go along and speak. And if there was one person in the crowd, then, just giving them a heap of value. I was attending local trade shows and, like family fairs and things like that, wedding fairs. And gosh, if I think about all the different things that I attended, I was doing lead boxes, people on a counter or something, those little plastic boxes where people could fill out a slip and you'd win, like a week of free PT and a bunch of other health and nutrition stuff. So I was doing so many different things, of which I don't do any of those things now because I don't need to, because I've built the business. But it was really hard to start with, and I took it really personally if somebody opted out of my emails. They'd come through and say somebody's opted out. Oh man, how did you opt out from this? This is amazing stuff. But you quickly get over that. So it was a long journey, lots of mistakes, very costly, but it's only by going through that you realize how you can become, sort of tougher and smarter about how you run things.
No, it makes like a perfect sense. Sounds like a great journey, and you were just hitting on. I mean, we're already to the present day of your journey. Feel like we just got to know you, and yet we're already are hitting towards the end of the episode. So it's a great time to transition to the two questions that I always like to hit on, and one of them you already started to intro or kind of reference, which is, so along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
I think the worst business decisions probably back right at the beginning, like I was just talking about, where I said that I'm a smart person. I don't have to. Well, I'm going to say it out loud now, because this is what I said to myself. I don't want to have to work hard in this part of the business. I'm going to get other people to do it. Just sit back and watch the money come in, and I will focus on doing the stuff in my studio, working one-on-one with clients, because I didn't want to stand in front of a group. I didn't want to have to do that group work because, I'm more of an introvert. I'm an accountant, left brain. I'm more introverted. Now, obviously saying that out loud, if you're in business and you don't want to work hard, then you are never going to be successful. And so with that mindset, it was like, okay, let me put in those 2, 3, I think I had 4 people at one point doing all that stuff. I had somebody doing all my admin as well. I was trying to do it all smarter. But within all that, I hadn't done the homework first to make sure that everything was the way that I wanted to do it. And it was only by me getting in there and understanding what people wanted, and actually being in front of a group and standing in front of like 20, 23 women and instructing them and learning what their challenges were. That was what has made me a better business person. So if that had have worked, it's very transient with trainers and stuff. So if it had have worked, they would have left. I would have got new people in and just hoped that they were as good as the last lot of people. They were good at business, but they were hopeless at business. So did I say that right? I don't know. I got that right. They were good trainers, but hopeless at business, right? Because I'm paying them to train, not to be, business people. And so I think that was probably the biggest mistake when I first started. It was a lot of heartache. It was a lot of money, not wasted, but it just didn't give me the return that I wanted. So I learned a lot through that. So I think if you're starting out, you've got to really immerse yourself in it. Don't think that there's an easy way. If you want to be successful, you've got to work really hard.
No, and I think that's a great takeaway. And I think that too often when you watch the movies, you read the books, you listen to the podcast, whatever it is, it just sounds like, oh, I had a great idea. I was an overnight success and I made lots of money and I'm only working an hour a day and everything. And I've got more money than I know what to do. And it never turns out, or I'll say, I guess never is too strong word. Almost always, with the 99% chance, doesn't work out that way. And you're going to have to put in the time, the money, the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears in order to really get to where you want to, or where you're wanting to be at. And at some point you might reach that at some day, but that is not going to be that first day that you launch. But I think it's an easy mistake to make. A lot of people have that conception, but a great one to learn from.
Well, I think before we get on to the next question,
Sure.
I think it probably took me 10 or 11 years, probably 10 years to get to the stage where I'm confident in what it is that I'm doing. My work ethic has never been stronger. Like, I work 7 days a week. I have client facing time 6 days a week. I have one day where I don't, but I'm working every single day. And that's just the mindset of success. I don't want to stop. It doesn't mean that I don't rest, but I work every single day.
I'm right there with you. And doesn't mean you can't have fun along the way. Doesn't mean you can't
That's
enjoy
right.
the success, but it does mean that you're going to have to work, and you're going to have to work hard in order to reach that point. So I think that's a great takeaway.
You've got to love business, don't you? Like, if you don't love business, stay working for someone else. You've got to love it, because it's lonely, it's hard. You're going to have really tough moments. Like, this has probably been the toughest week of my last 2 years with everything that's gone on for me this week. but it makes you stronger, and you keep pushing through because you got to love the business of business.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. So now we're going to jump to the second question, which is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Yeah, coaching. You got to get coaching, and the way to do that, because, and the trouble with this in this day and age, that everybody's a coach. And you go spend 5 minutes with somebody on a weekend. It's like, yeah, I'm a certified coach. I would find somebody, the area that you work and the area that you want to get great at in your life. I say, Google the best person in the world with proven results. Not that somebody is just doing it overnight, but somebody that's been doing it for a decade or more and has years and years and years and so many testimonials. So they're not just a fluffy type of, oh yeah, I do this and I do that. Well, where's your success story? Oh no, I've got plenty of to do this. Well, show me. As like the before and after photos I was talking about before. Well, they're real. Now, of course, when I first started doing it, there was no such thing as a filter. And now there's all kinds of filters, so you don't know whether things are as real as they used to be. But you can cut through that if you find that somebody has been, tremendously authentic. They've been doing it for years and years. So find that coach that is going to take you to the pinnacle of where you want to get to.
No, I think that's a great takeaway. And I like how you said, there are a lot of coaches out there. Not all of them are good. Some people go through a 1 or 2 week course and think that they can go and coach everybody, and they are snake oil salesmen. And yet you have great ones out there that can help you to deal with the issues of whether it's building a business or mental health or dealing with anything that along those lines. And there's a lot of different aspects of coaching. And yet I think, to your point, if you can go through, sift through, get the testimonials, make sure they're actually delivering and actually worthwhile, they can be a big boost to your business and help you miss a lot of the pitfalls, a lot of the things along the way that you'd otherwise encounter.
Yeah, well, I mean, a good example there is like some people might call themselves what I call myself, but I've got 35 years experience. So I've been running business full time, but I've got 35 years experience in what I now coach people in doing. I see some people that come through that have maybe, they're in their early 20s. So clearly they've got maybe a few years of experience, and I see them work with people and it's like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? But for them, it's about their ego and stuff. It's about the trainer's ego and the coach's ego, as opposed to, are you really giving the person what they need? You've got to be skeptical. You've got to try and find that person that's genuine and has got a proven track record.
Absolutely. I think that's a great takeaway. Well, as we're wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, sure. So you can, and my screen in the background here is probably the easiest. So this is my podcast, The Mental Toughness and Body Show. If you go to mentaltoughnessandbodyshow.com, I have a free consultation in there, so people can opt in there. If they want to see what I do with like my health and fitness and coaching business, the website is Studios, STUDIOZ, PT, as in personal training, .com.au. It's got everything there. I'm on all the social media platforms as well, YouTube, you name it. I give everybody a free consult. So just love to connect with people. I do work a lot with people locally because I've got a physical premises, but I work with people around the globe, just like we're connecting here right now.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect, and support a great business and get a great coach on your side. So with that, thank you again, Rob, for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners who are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, because it really helps us to make sure we can help as many startups and small business out there as possible. And on that note, if you, for your startup or small business, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Thank you again, Rob, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. Love your work too. This is great, supporting startups. Well done.
Absolutely. Have a good one.